guidance and strength. Welcome to Power to the People Pleasers. My name is Amy Ballantyne, and I'm so excited to have my guest here, Dr. Collette. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I have to tell our listeners I met you at our TEDx in Oshawa back in June, and you are such a light, and you have such a cool message that I was like chasing you down, telling you that I had
Oh,
to get you on the podcast. I was so excited.
thank you. And you were so amazing too. I was so eager to collaborate because your message is phenomenal as well.
Thank you, my friend. So I want the listeners to know more about you before we get started. But before we jump into your bio, have you ever been a people pleaser? And if so, how did that show up in your life?
Yeah, just let's see, about every year of my life prior to maybe the last two. Yes, it has been a huge issue in my life, actually, just dealing with codependency, having other people's perception of me really weigh heavily on my heart and guide what I was doing with my life instead of actually connecting with my light and being who I was created to be. Yeah, it very much played a large role in my life, and I am a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah, me too. Me too. How was there a pivot moment when you were like, okay, I want to connect to my light? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. Actually, it was a parenting moment.
Mhm.
And I like can pinpoint the exact moment. My father was visiting me and was staying with us from Thailand. And he was kind of, he's an elderly man and he was throwing a temper tantrum. And he was trying to influence how I was parenting. He wasn't pleased with how I was parenting. And the vast majority of my life was, trying to please my father, as most young women do. And I just had this moment of like, hey, wait a second. I was given my children, like I was trusted with them. You had your
Mhm.
chance. And I realized that I had been parenting based on everybody else's rules for me as a
Mhm.
mother. And my even my children's rules, like, because I have three children and they're different. And so the fairness and the trying to be equitable, and but all of the rules from society, the rules from my programming, the rules that I had just been had been going in my head on and on and on. And I find it was like in that moment, I realized I will never be the parent that I'm supposed to be if I am trying to listen to everybody else's rules for me. What I need to do is connect to my light and realize that my job as a parent is to help my children connect to their light and to be who they were created to be. And I was given that responsibility because I knew somewhere in my soul, I knew what they needed. And so just being able to trust that, and I mean, it's an ongoing process, but in that specific moment, I actually had a conversation with one of my children about it. And I was just like, I'm done parenting by all these other rules. I might mess up. In fact, I know I'm going to mess up, and I'm going to mess up a lot, but like, I'm going to do the best I can every day, and I'm going to own my mess ups. I'm going to show you what it looks like to actually live in my own light and model that
Mhm.
for you.
Oh, yes.
I
Yes.
mean, it's a process. Don't think I'm like perfect. I'm not even close to perfect at it by any means, but definitely that's my trajectory now.
Wow. You know what I love about this is this idea of it's making peace with the fact that there's going to be other inputs coming in your direction, but being in awareness that you have this knowing
Hmm.
and you have your own guidance coming
Yeah.
to you of what are the right things in that moment. But I'm 100% with you on I have said the words, I'm not perfect. I've said the words, okay, I made a mistake there. I've said the words, I've said to my kids, I also have three, you know what's right in your heart. And I want you to trust that and listen to that,
Yeah.
especially as they're getting older, that we get to trust that we've set them up with the guidance that is listening to their own soul, not listening to everybody else's na na na
Right.
na.
Right. I know. It's so challenging too, is I mean, especially I think I have a much greater appreciation for the challenge that our kids are going through these days. I mean, it's easy for us to be like, we all had our stuff. We all went through this, we went through that. But when we went through our stuff, it wasn't memorialized on the internet everywhere you went,
No,
right?
and
So like,
saved forever.
yeah, the mistakes that we were able to make, I feel were like at least less broadcast, less
Yeah.
memorialized in perpetuity, right? But my goal is not that my kids don't make mistakes. My goal is that their mistakes are that they learn, one, that they learn from them, that they cherish the mistakes, that they actually embrace their mistakes, because failure is how we learn.
Yeah.
And that was a big issue for me, is not I felt inadequate making mistakes rather than empowered. And so I'm trying to switch that in my own brain
Mhm.
and in the brain of the people that I work with and with my children, because mistakes are how we learn. My goal is that their mistakes aren't catastrophic mistakes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
let's
for
like
sure.
learn from mine. I made so many. Like, let my mistakes guide you so that you
Mhm.
can make your own mistakes. Please don't make the same ones that I made, because
Yeah.
then it makes mine less impactful.
For sure. I'm 100% with you. Well, I feel like what you've already shared has been very, very valuable, especially when we're talking about tapping into our resilience and strength. We are learning from those challenges. We are learning from those mistakes. We are continuing to move forward and grow there. So I'm excited for the rest of our conversation, but I
Me
want
too.
the listeners to know about you, Dr. Collette Wayne, CEO and visionary behind Oceans of Grace Consulting, is a best-selling author, speaker, wellness coach, and scientist. So cool, who stands at the forefront of ecosystem wellness, a field that interweaves the well-being of humans, animals, and the environment. Her life, her early life journey was marked with trauma, overcoming a tumultuous upbringing and an injury that left her a disabled Air Force veteran with lifelong chronic pain by age 20. So many life moments I'm sure we could talk about for hours.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
I'm so excited to learn from you. And I have a bachelor's degree in animal biology from the University of California, Davis, and a master's and doctorate in animal well-being and behavior from Purdue University. My goodness, and a 25-year career, which has notable public service career regulating the Endangered Species Act. I mean, I could go on and on. You
Yeah.
are doing incredible work. And I also want to highlight, we're going to get into this, your TEDx in a little bit, but I really loved in your TEDx how you connected animal wellness with human wellness. And so we'll talk about that shortly. But I want
Yeah.
to hear from you if you're open to sharing a little bit about the trauma to purpose, resilience and strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you read in my bio, I did have a very rough, challenging upbringing. I was on my own when I was 16 and knew I wanted to pursue my education, but I joined the military so that I could do that. And then I
Wow.
was injured and, had to get out of the military, but I used that opportunity to go to school. And so my entire vision was like animal welfare, animal behavior.
Mhm.
Behavior has always really intrigued me. And I had this amazing career in working for the federal government, regulating our
Mhm.
Endangered Species Act, and really trying to bring people together to understand that we can move, like we can all be in a win-win. Like, if we just
Mhm.
think strategically about how we behave and what we do, we can align our needs with that of our earth. And so I
Mhm.
was in this career of like trying to help save our earth, honestly. And then years of personal trauma caught up with me. And I had some trauma in my life, and that instigated a lot of my medical issues. They came up,
Mhm.
and I wound up losing my health and having to medically retire. And then, with that went my mental health, because I had completely, my entire worth was caked onto who I was professionally.
Yeah.
And so that like massive identity crisis, just I lost my financial stability, I lost everything. So I went from being a very successful professional to getting on government assistance, living in an old RV with my 3 kids and my 3 dogs, and really recognizing that here I was, a wellness scientist, and I did not have wellness. I mean, it was rock bottom, right? It was
Wow.
bad. And it all came full circle. I realized, how in the world can we care about saving our earth if we're in survival mode? Like, I couldn't even get out of bed. So
Yeah.
I knew I'm fortunate in that, like, I have had this passion in my life of what I wanted to do forever, but I couldn't even get out of bed. It was like I was sleeping 18 to 20 hours a day. Taking my kids to school was like that was all I could manage. And so and as a disabled veteran, I am in the, you know, that medical space where I get healthcare from the VA system, and
Mhm.
it is really broken. And I realized that the vast majority of us are in a situation where we have to fight really hard for our wellness, if we're even aware of what our wellness encompasses. And
Mhm.
so here I was, this very competent and capable person with a PhD in wellness,
Mhm.
having to fight so hard to even get the basic fundamental wellness rights that I had. And I just realized, like, this isn't okay. Like,
Mhm.
we're facing these uh, global crises that as a society we've never faced before. Like, not to be melodramatic, but we really are fighting for the good of humanity right now.
Yeah.
And yet the people who make up our society, most of us aren't well. And so it kind of hit full circle. I had been in my background of animal wellness, which is, you can't ask an animal, how are you feeling? Are you happy today? So we have to look at the physiology. We have to actually look at the science, and we have to actually, like, understand what's going on, the biology of wellness, what's going on
Mhm.
with our hormones, what's going on with, our physiology in our brain, and then how that's regulating throughout our entire nervous system. And so I had this unique perspective of looking at it from an animal perspective for my entire career, and then kind of pulling that, like, coming full circle and being like, well, what does this mean for me as a human? And in my TEDx, I talked about telos. Telos is the essence of who you were created to be, and it's a philosophical term. It's been around since Aristotle. I mean, like we know this stuff, and yet we don't live it. And so telos is really important in animal welfare because there's different components of wellness. There's physical wellness, there's social wellness. I mean, depending on the species, there's all sorts of. We're not just one component, right? It's
Yes.
multidimensional. And so it's also very values based. You might value your physical wellness over your mental wellness or your emotional wellness, and I might have an opposite perspective. And so, in order to capture that, it's really like, well, what is the essence of you? What's the turtleness of a turtle? What's the eagleness of an eagle? And if that entity isn't able to experience the essence of who they are, then maybe we can say their welfare is compromised. If
Mhm.
a dolphin can't swim, we can say very
Yeah.
clearly in the scientific space, it is not experiencing optimal welfare, right? And
Yes.
so it was this like light bulb moment for me where I was like, wait a second, telos matters to animal wellness, and yet I don't even know my telos. Like, how can I be well if I'm not focused on understanding my telos, the essence of who I was created to be? And that really involved pulling off all of those trauma layers and recognizing like removing myself and my emotion from the trauma and recognizing the lesson in the trauma
Yes.
and how it guided me to where I needed to be. That was the huge switch for me.
Wow. Wow. And so when you are working now, can you share a little bit of what your work looks like now that you have this awareness?
Yeah. So I have a vision for Oceans of Grace that is profound. I actually want to change the face of wellness in our world globally. I would like for us to completely be able to revamp our medical, our social justice systems, our education systems to really understand this holistic, whole self wellness. You know,
Yeah.
we use holistic in the woo woo science space, but like your whole self is the wellness of you is critical to the wellness of the ecosystem. So what I do now is really try to help people find their wellness and then empower them to live in their telos, contributing back into the ecosystem
Mhm.
so that we can create a world where we're all contributing this, like, our gifts and our genius and our true, like we were all here, we were created to be here for a purpose. Everybody's unique purpose is different. You know, you are here with your, like, intricate DNA, your epigenetics, your experiences. Like, the chances of you being you are impossible. Like,
Mhm.
statistically, if you really look at the science of it, we would call it nearly impossible. The
Yeah.
odds are not in your favor, right? And yet here you are. And so if you were created for a purpose and you're not well and you're not able to contribute that purpose to society, then the ecosystem misses out on your contribution. And so a lot of what my daily work now is trying to help people live in their telos so that they can actually contribute their gifts into the ecosystem. But
Mm.
I'm trying to create a really big space. I would like to have a resilience hub, where a nature-based retreat center where people and animals can come together to find wellness. And
Oh,
I do a lot of animal assisted therapy. And, you know, I've been an animal trainer for decades and trained everything from mice to seals and sea lions. And
well,
when I realized that I could train my own brain, that was the click. Like, oh, wait a second. Like,
mm.
my entire life I had this, very egocentric attitude of, like, we're human, we're above that, or like my biology is different. I don't know what I really thought, but in reality, the second I learned that I could use the training tools that I have to actually train my brain to get it to work for me instead of against me, it was life changing, because our brain is not our friend. To be really honest, our brain is
Yeah.
designed to keep us in survival. It's designed to keep us alive. It's not designed to keep us happy. So
Mm.
that was a long
Let's
answer
talk
to your
about that.
question.
Let's talk. I'm like, yeah, I talk about this with my clients all the time, but I'm excited for you to share a couple of tidbits about this because so few people understand that they think that the brain is the be all and end all of being happy,
Yeah.
but it's it's causing a lot of confusion.
Yeah. No, it's a
And
trick. It's a
stress.
scam. Yeah, it's a
Such
scam.
a
Like,
scam.
evolutionarily, your brain is wired to look for the negative and to find what's wrong in your situation so that it can keep you alive. And
Yeah,
that does not equal happiness. Like,
no.
constantly seeking the negative means that you're living in it. And
Mhm.
and what happens is that your cells become used to the hormonal state that you're of stress that you're in. And it's this status of, like homeostasis. Like, the easiest way to understand it is like a thermostat, right? Like, we all have this area that we are comfortable in.
Mhm.
And say it's 70 degrees. When our cells go up to 71, our brain is like, get back down, come back down here. Like, you're not supposed to be at 71. We're not comfortable there. And so, the brain isn't about growth. The brain is about safety. It's not about like getting you to the next level. It's about keeping you comfortable. And
And
comfort and
safe.
growth never go hand in hand, right? Like
Yeah.
you cannot be comfortable and be growing at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a battle. It's a constant
Mhm.
battle between your highest self and what is going to serve your highest self and your comfort.
Oh,
And when
you
you
know
can,
what?
yeah,
I have to, I love this conversation so much because you are bringing science and so many things that most often you don't hear from a scientist, right?
yeah,
Purpose, like your life energy, all of
yeah,
these words you're using so rarely heard in
yeah,
science. It's so
yeah.
beautiful.
And the funny thing is that I was often ostracized, right? Like by both communities.
Mm.
And like I'm a very spiritual person. And being in science, spirituality and science didn't often go hand in hand. In fact, he's gonna kill me for saying this, but one of the like my PhD advisor was like, you can't name your company Oceans of Grace. That's too religious. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. I'm not using grace in the religious context. I'm using grace in the context of like everything has happened to you to guide you to where you need to be. And when you can
Yeah.
recognize the gift of grace in your life, when you can recognize the gift of like, this happened to me because I am supposed to use it for good. I'm supposed to use it to fulfill my highest purpose. And so he challenged me, honestly. He was like, if you're going to use this, you need to know what this, like, you need to know what this really means. And I went on a soul searching thing, was like, is this, is this divine, or is this actually a concept of unmerited favor? Like, what did I do to deserve the benefits that I have been given in my life? Nothing. Like, I didn't like, inherently I have worth, right? But I didn't deserve all of the wonderful things that I've been blessed with. Like like as a human, we have inherent worth, but the
Mhm.
grace in our life is just, it's everything.
Wow.
So,
Yes.
yeah. But
Yes.
but coming full circle, but
Mhm.
so being in that science space, and now it's such a great time in the world because
Mhm.
science is finally catching up with spirituality, right? Like the science, like the quantum space and all of like the law of
Yes.
attraction and all of that stuff. It really is catching up, but in reality, there is no doubt in my mind, and I think the science is really proving it, that there's more than our physicalness. We know that there's a spiritual component to life, and all of the science of happiness and well-being really comes down to there being something bigger than you.
Mhm.
It's not just about you. And that's what it comes down to, is like, you were created for a purpose to fill a niche in this ecosystem.
Mhm.
And you cannot fully be fulfilled in life unless you are fulfilling the purpose to which you were created to fulfill.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? I think we could chat all day. I
I
have so many more questions. So many more. So
know.
yes, I really want to invite the listeners to check out your TEDx, How the Turtleness of a Turtle Saved Me. I will put a link to it in the show
Thank
notes as
you.
well. It is awesome. And I know that you have a free audio. If you can tell the listeners, I'll link it
Yes.
below, but tell them a little bit about that.
Yes, well, it's been a great couple months. At the same month I did my TEDx, I also our book Rise Up,
Yeah.
which is co-authored by Lisa Nichols and some other amazing professionals, hit bestseller. So right at that same time, I was doing the TEDx and hit this bestseller list, which is great. In that book, I have a chapter called "Surrounded by Oceans of Grace,"
Mm.
and I would be happy to share the free audio reading of that. Actually, it was the first time I read the chapter after it was published, so I got a little emotional, to be honest. But I'd be happy to share that recording with your listeners, and they can just send us an email at info@oceansofgrace.earth, and we will get it sent out to you. So just,
Amazing.
yeah, just shoot us an email, info@oceansofgrace.earth. And
Amazing. Thank you.
in that is also 5 tips to really living in your telos as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how can people stay in contact with you after this?
Thank you. Well, our website is oceansofgrace.earth, and our social media is also the same, which we are just kind of launching that social media platform. My personal social media is also Dr. Collette Wayne. So you can reach out to me either way, but oceansofgrace.earth is our kind of one-stop shop where we will be putting all of our information and everything that's upcoming. All of, the links of everything we have going on will be there.
So great. Well, such a pleasure to have you, and thank you for you shining your light and being in your telos and
Oh.
being here today. I'm very grateful to know you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy.
Mm.
And the same, you're such a powerful presence. I love watching you and everything you do. And I just am very appreciative for you inviting me. And I'm
Mm.
appreciative to all of your listeners too, because
Yeah.
yeah, we know your time is valuable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. And thank you so much to all of the listeners for tuning in to Power to the People Pleasers yet again. Please stay tuned